Hey everyone, welcome to week 51. And the spirit is labeled this week the Indigo Bat. So when I received that as a vision or an image, I was a little bit confused and I didn't exactly know what that meant. And so I sort of sat with it for a while and I asked the spirit, okay, I understand what a bat is. I understand what the color purple or indigo represents. What does it really mean altogether? And so the issue with this and the issue that played in with this week was that bats don't use sight. So bats rely on sonar to essentially get through everything. So they're working with sound waves. They're not using their eyes. So similarly, there was a real theme this week of not being able to rely on sight, meaning that we were going to be somewhat limited in our capacity to be able to clearly see through things, but we would have to rely on our other senses. And so purple, representing the highest vibrational spiritual color, was really meaning that this week was not going to allow us to really see things as much as utilize spiritual energy or intuition or our connection to something greater to be able to evolve and move through our various lessons. So I'll explain that a little bit more as we go through into the cards of the week. So let's have a look at the very first one. You worry about others' help too much. You are strong. So this card always comes up whenever Spirit has recognized the fact that we might be relying or looking to rely on other people's help a little bit more than we really need to or should. And so Spirit always brings this message up to really say that we've got everything that we need to be able to succeed and to be able to move forward. But we just need to find that strength within ourselves. So whenever this card is present, especially at the start of the week, it's really showing that theme in regards to what I was saying before, that we wouldn't be able to clearly see things. We would have to rely on other senses. So this was saying that Spirit was basically preparing us for this week where we were going to feel challenged or unprepared for things, and we wouldn't be able to get out of them or through them in our usual just, I see what's going on, or I see there's a hurdle ahead, so I'm going to get around it. Instead, we were going to have to rely on something deeper and something a little bit more connective or intuitive to be able to understand and move through the lessons of the week. Next card was Ancient Greece Energy. So this card always appears whenever we're tuning into ancient or lost power, specifically in ancient Greece. And so this card coming up straight after the last message, it's really just showing the sort of spiritual depth that was occurring throughout this week, meaning that we were going to go to deeper places to find hidden or locked power within us. And if we found the capacity to be able to ask someone or something greater than us, in this instance the Greek gods and goddesses, we would then be able to find the strength that we needed to be able to evolve through the lessons. Next card, the Martyr. So the Martyr appearing in the middle of the week after the two that I just mentioned, it was really showing that there was going to be the trap that we could easily fall into, where we would get into that victim mentality, or we would get into that flow of setting up scenarios where we know that we're going to get dissatisfied, betrayed, or let down, but we'll do them anyway because that's what a good person does. And so that's kind of the trap of the martyr. And when we think about martyrs throughout history, they've sacrificed their lives to do something good. And so when we see that play out in people as an everyday sort of archetype, those people always put themselves in scenarios or situations where they know that people are going to let them down or going to disappoint them. And that's a really important thing to understand. If we continue to put ourselves in scenarios where we know we're going to get let down, that's not on those other people then, that's completely on us, because we're the ones who are actually putting ourselves in each and every situation, and we know that it's going to let us down. So, next card, Psychic Powers. So Psychic Powers, following up from the Martyr and from the earlier cards of the week, was really tying into that message of the Indigo Bat. Because as I said, the indigo represents the spiritual connection, or the spiritual the enlightenment, or the cosmic connection, because in the chakra colors, indigo obviously represents the third eye, meaning all of our intuitive and our psychic capacity. So this card being present was saying that instead of getting locked into the trap or the cycle of the Martyr, which is very non-spiritual and very not uplifting or connecting. Instead, we've got psychic powers that we're going to activate and awaken within us on the Thursday, so that utilizing them was going to allow us to evolve and grow outside of the typical realm of, the Martyr, or the feeling less than powerful, or feeling less than evolved, or less than spiritual, or less than able to claim happiness for ourselves. Next card, watch out for the law. So this card comes up whenever we start going through progress really quickly. So whenever we start to develop or awaken our consciousness in a speedier sort of way, once that occurs, oftentimes we sort of bumble through life and we don't really look out for the signs. And so those signs might be that little bit of intuition that's saying, don't park your car there, or you're speeding a little bit too much, or you're not wearing your seatbelt. It's those kinds of moments where you're not fully aware or fully 100% in your body that oftentimes the spirit will bring scenarios like the law to jolt you back into being aware. So this card came up to kind of just prompt you to go, okay, I know that we're working up here, but we also need to be very much so in our body right now. And so part of this as well was really asking you to look at every other element of your life and just make sure that you're caught up with governmental issues, and also submitted any forms that are necessary as well. Next card. Okay, you need a hand, ask for help. So this card comes up whenever the spirit can recognize within us that we're struggling, or we haven't got, or we perceive as though we've sort of reached the end of our tank. And so in those moments, spirit wants us to be able to just go, yeah, I surrender to this. I recognize that I don't have the power within me to really be able to succeed and complete this particular portion of things. So I'm going to ask for help. And while, yes, it is good to be able to ask for help for people around us, it's often not that beneficial, because sometimes we'll ask and we put ourselves in a vulnerable position where we can ask, and then those people don't actually follow through, and so we then end up going through the cycle of feeling disappointed in people. Instead, we should always go straight to spirit and ask spirit for help, and then spirit will bring us people that are ready to help us. That's an important thing to really get. So the last card of the week is, you've walked a hard road, it's over. And so when we look at these two messages, at the start, you worry about others' help too much, and then at the very end, you've walked a hard road, it's over. Those two cards are showing you the progress and the progression of this week and within what was going to happen. Meaning that at the very start of the week, you were going to get into observing that you were going to question your own strength. You were going to question whether or not you had the capacity and the power to be able to fulfill everything that you feel you're walking through or walking towards. And then at the very end of the week, the Spirit was bringing it all together to say that this week in and of itself has challenged you. Now that's done. So make sure you've really gotten those lessons. So then from this week moving forwards, you'll be able to embark upon something new and transformational. Because next week, Christmas, representing the divine birth, that does something to our consciousness. That awakens something in the mass consciousness. So this is a very powerful, mystical, magical, supernatural time where we can and should expect miracles. But we've just got to make sure that we've cleaned up everything within us that was really calling for our attention. So let's now have a look, as I asked for a quick message, a question rather. And so Julie Parmax asked, how can we find out who our spirit guides are? What is the best way you recommend we channel into them? I've always been curious, and I've been told by another medium who one of them is, but I'm sure there are more than one. Okay, so when it comes to a spirit guide, obviously spirit guides, angels, animal totems, they're all separate types of energies, but they're all concerned with our development. They just work in different ways. And so spirit guides are traditionally teachers, Traditionally, they've often lived lifetimes as humans before they've sort of transitioned and evolved beyond the need to be on Earth. So they take up teacher roles and mantles where they assist people. And just like you had different types of teachers in school, and they all taught in very different ways, and some you really got along well with, and others really triggered you and you had a little bit of a back and forth with. The same thing can happen with your spirit guides. Although you're not going to have conflict with them, the way in which they teach you may not be the way in which you like to learn. And so that's really important to understand, that the way in which you're going to be taught your lessons by your spirit guide may not be the way you love to learn, but it's going to be the way that you need to learn. And so a spirit guide stays with you for a period of time, typically while you learn a lesson. That lesson can be for the entire duration of a lifetime. Oftentimes it's through a period of life. And so just if you look back in your past and you see how you can really categorize your life into various segments, and each segment really focused on one particular theme. When each of those themes ends, we get another guide whose speciality is working with that particular segment of lesson or that segment of life. And so when you work with that concept, it's good to be able to, well, firstly, not get too attached to one particular teacher. Instead, understand that people change and flow through, and we're not attached because we know that we're ultimately getting looked after constantly. So when it comes to meeting them and tuning into them and speaking to them, there are so many different types of ways. There are various different types of guided meditations and visualizations, and maybe I'll record one which you can follow along with. And so the best way to start is just to simply sit and relax, but then relaxing means relaxing. It doesn't mean adding pressure. It doesn't mean adding stress. Instead, sit, relax, and feel excited. Feel like a little kid who's playing with a toy, because that is really the most pure expression of trying to connect with spirit. So if you approach it with that light-hearted vibe and like this is something amazing and new, and let it really sort of, I just keep on coming back to the word excited, excite you. Sit with that feeling for a moment and then close your eyes and then just ask a question. And you want to just ask something like, "Dear Spirit Guide, are you there?" And wait to feel or hear a yes or a no. Immediately, you'll probably hear a more forceful or aggressive response, which will probably be something like no, or you may even hear yes, but it will be a little bit more forceful. Typically, we hear two voices. The true voice will be the one that's a little bit softer, a little bit more gentle, and then the ego self will be the one that's immediate and forceful. And so you want to start practicing with this process of asking a question and feeling the difference as to which voice is which. And as you do that, you can go on to saying, okay, so what is my spirit guide's name? What is your name? Can you show me? Can you connect with me today? So by going through that process of just asking questions and seeing what happens without pressure, instead with excitement and with a sense of fun and lightheartedness, you'll start to feel into the response and the voice and the vibe of who your teacher is. And as you do that, you'll start to feel how they want to teach you, and you'll really notice the way in which they like to interact with you. That's going to be the best place to start connecting with your spirit guides. So that is the end of week 51, the Indigo Bat. So I hope that you enjoyed this message and you got something out of it. As you know, every daily message can be found on Facebook, facebook.com/Todd Savvas Teaching, and then also on Instagram, which is @Todd Savvas, which is my name, and I just hit the computer. And then if you follow me on all of these things, on Instagram you'll also get the God of the Day, and then on Twitter you also get the Mantra of the Day. And then what I would love, if you enjoyed this video, if you could please give it a thumbs up. leave a comment in the description below. Let me know how these messages worked out for you. And also, if you have a question coming up, or if you have any segment ideas or videos that you'd like me to do in future, I've got a list that I'm doing, but I would love to hear what you really want to see. And of course, I will do more on spirit guides because there's so much more to talk about, but obviously I want to keep this as short as possible. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have an amazing next week, and I will see you then with the next video. Thank you.